If you like this channel and what I do here, please help to support my work by checking out one of my books, available from Lulu Publishing and Amazon.com. Thank you. Hi folks, welcome to Electric Media Madness. Carl James here, joined by Dan Ryan. How you doing?
Suffering.
Which means it must be time for disco.
Yeah.
Oh God. Episode 5, which is the title. These episode titles really do sum up. I mean, I'm going to watch this or die trying. So, do you want to do a very, very quick sort of?
Yeah.
Clip? There's not really a lot to say, is there? Really?
Not really. They meet up with a federation. Act like twats a bit. See that there are loads of people like dying and stuff. So they're like, okay, let us help. And they say, okay. Eventually, after interrogating them all a bit and the magic of Michael Burnham, they say, sure, you can help. And then they say this is where the infected people have been, and then they're like, okay, there's this ship that has all the plants and everything on, so we can get what we need to make an antidote from there. They go there, hang out a bit, do some bullshit, you know.
Yeah. Get the plant.
Get the
which
plant.
Makes the cure.
Leave character whose name I don't know behind.
None.
Little spider lady.
None. The Barzan woman. Yeah.
Then they go back. They're like, yeah, you can help. We don't know what happened with the burn. And that's pretty much it, isn't it? There's not really a lot happens. No.
It's very boring. It's very plodding. It's very pedestrian. It should have been a big wow thing. I mean, they tried to make out in the first 5 minutes. You had the crew. They were gurning and looking out through the windows. They looked like proper village idiots. They did, didn't they?
Yeah.
They were like, "Oh yeah, we're home. It's Starfleet. It's the Federation. Look at that ship. Look at that. There's holographic ships here, and there's organic ships here, and oh look, that one's called Voyager." And that should mean nothing to them because I mean that's a member berry. That's a member berry for the viewers because there may have been ships around in their time period called Voyager, but was it significant? Was that ship really profound ship that
Probably
everyone remembers
not.
it?
No.
No. And they certainly wouldn't have known about the Voyager that it was referencing for the viewers because it wasn't in their time period. So, you know, why they put so, oh look, it's called Voyager. You know, what that was about, I don't know. That was just clearly them trying to say, yeah, we like Star Trek. Look, we can still do things for the fans. You know?
Ha! We own it now.
Yeah, it's probably more likely that. Yeah. So they're all gurning and crying and cheering and smiling and smirking and I mean they're a right ship full of basket cases, aren't they? They really are. But they keep making out that they're like the best, and we get a lot of that in this episode, don't we? About our way of doing things is the best way.
A lot.
Loads of that in this episode, which again, like you say, is the big middle finger to the viewers that don't like Star Trek as it is now. Michael Burnham almost acting like she did right at the beginning of the series again.
Yeah.
She keeps stepping over Saru, even though she said, you know, it would be my honor to be your first officer and I'll respect you and I'll do this. And then the next minute she's like, no, Saru's saying, right, we're going to do this. And then Burnham's like, do we really have to do this? Can't we do this instead? And he's like, no, I think, you know, we need to take a step back and we need to do this. And she just keeps hammering along and she's goading the Admiral and she's goading that lieutenant woman as well. And then in the end, Saru's like, you know what? I can't be bothered to argue with you. So I'll just, you know. And then all of a sudden he's just on the same page as her, isn't he? He's like, yeah, this sounds like a good idea. This is, you know, let's get back out there and find the rest of the fleet and find the rest of the Federation, and let's do this and let's do that. And they have this bargaining chip, don't they, about, well, it's not really, it's a very convenient set of circumstances that happen to be going on. You know, there's this virus which is going to kill a few aliens, but it doesn't seem to be a threat to a lot of people. But we can find a cure for this, you know, where we happen to know about this seed ship that's been floating around in space for 1,000 years. And then he's like, oh yeah, it's out there, but we just don't know where it is. Now, what are the odds of that? The same ship I'm assuming it's the same ship.
Well, yeah, they said it was. I
don't know, the same seed vault or whatever they call it, this seed vault. But I mean, the statistical odds of that thing not being ripped apart by an anomaly or some sort of explosion or an attack by Ferengi, or where was it during the Dominion War? Where was it during like the Borg ripping through the Federation space? Where was it when all these other things that have happened in the history of post Discovery? But no, it was fine. It was just floated along there. I'm assuming they had a crew rotation, that the crew rotated out and then somebody else came on board and took over, because they said it was the Barzan that was running it.
Yeah, it's like they take in turns or something.
Yeah. But that's really nonsensical. But no, we know where it. We knew that it was out there, and it's probably still be out there, but we don't know where it is. We can find it in 10 seconds with our magic mushroom drive, and they do. And then, like you say, who's a appropriate name, nondescript character, because she, apart from Yum Yum with Giorgio at the end of season 2, when they're fighting and that, she's barely had any kind of presence in season 2.
They were like, here's a bit of character for her, but not
here's
really much.
Here's another background character with a tiny few bits of And in this one, she says to Michael Burnham, let's see if I can find the quote. I have never seen anybody reach for the best in others quite like you, Michael. To Michael Burnham. All hail Queen Mikey, the bestest ever.
The Queen is
She's
back.
like, and there's lots of that in this episode, isn't there? You're the best.
Way too much.
Yeah, that Barzan doctor chap who's like, it seems as though they've just took away any hope he had of. I know you said that his family probably was dead, but he was hoping he might be able to do something, and that. But you've got the doctor there, Doctor. No second name because I can't remember it. is that nondescript character? Even though he's like one of the main characters, but I cannot remember his name. I can never remember his name.
I can't either.
And you've got Non, and they're both like, no, you deal with him, you counsel, you be like on the Samaritan's phone line, to this chap. He's grieving the loss of his family, but you know how to deal with people, Michael Burnham. And she's like, yeah, I'm in there, and she's like, well, I'm sorry about the fact that your family are all dead. I'm sorry about the fact that you're going down
really.
No, she doesn't even say sorry. No, she doesn't.
They are dead.
She's just like,
help me.
They're dead. We need to save a lot more people than your family, and they're more important than your family. So tell us where the seeds are, and then we'll just take them. And then they're like, you've got to come with us and all this kind of thing. I don't really know how that, presumably because they think he's mad. But there's another line there as well, which was really shocking. And I made an entire page of notes on this one, so bear with me on this one. This one's a rant, right? So Non says to, I think it was to the doctor, because they were saying that he was being irrational, or it was rational decision, something. And she says, just because, understand the phrasing of this, just because you don't understand a choice doesn't make it irrational, right? So I think that's pretty bullshit, really, right? Because an irrational choice, as I see it, maybe I'm wrong in this, correct me out there in YouTube land if you think I am, but I think an irrational choice is when it clearly can be seen as an irrational thing. It's an irrational choice. It's got nothing to do with, do you understand it or not? That right? My example here I think of is if somebody murders somebody with no justification or reason, just because they can, I think that would qualify as being irrational, right?
Yeah.
So whether you understood it or not is irrelevant.
Yeah.
It is what it is. It's just an irrational act. So understanding doesn't really come into it. If somebody's being irrational, they're clearly irrational.
Yeah.
But I thought that dialogue is like them trying to. It's like subpar pseudo psychobabble, basically.
Yeah.
It's like they're trying to be. In other words, we mustn't judge others. Blah 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 blah. All that kind of thing. It's identity politics, basically. That's what. And clearly, the writers thought they were being really really profound with that line, but it's utter codswallop. It's garbage. It doesn't. It's the rantings of somebody who's got a manifesto about the world and they're writing it on toilet paper or something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like it's just nonsensical crap. It doesn't. It's like people trying to sound profound and and failing very, very miserably. So, and there's a lot of that in this episode. There really is a lot of that in this episode. Yeah.
That's what most of the episode is.
I mean, I'm jumping all over my notes. Loads of crying in this one. It's just, and there was a scene where that lieutenant, whose name I can't remember, the one from the future Starfleet, she's in the engineering section with Tig Notaro, Jet Reno, whatever her name is, Tilly and Stamets. And she's like, your relationship isn't very professional. And Tilly's like, it's how we work. You know, it's like, so yeah, it's just like, there's lots of that going on in this episode, isn't there? And there's that thing you were saying about looking up at the sky when Saru starts coming out with this shit about during the Enlightenment and the Renaissance, blah blah blah, and all that, and they suddenly were looking in like 3 dimensions and that, and you being really condescending to these 1,000-year more advanced than them. Yes, they've had the burn happen and all that, but they're clearly more advanced in a lot of ways, and they're so condescending to them, and it's like, maybe you need us to remind you how to look at the stars again and all this kind of...
The thing is, they're being fucking idiots, right? Like, their whole organisation has crumbled to the ground, and they're like, oh yeah, can we go fuck off and explore for 5 years?
Yeah. I mean, clearly there's some level of technology going on there. I mean, they've got some quite advanced stuff in this sort of sector.
But yeah, they can't just... They've got another... They clearly haven't got that many ships. They get another one over, and they're just like, can we go? Can we go now?
Yeah. And the conceited arrogance of that, because Burnham actually says to Saru, there's no other crew with our experience. And Saru says, I agree. How conceited and arrogant is that? There is no other crew out there with our experience. They've just come from like fucking 22nd century, and it's now the 30-something odd century. So logically, the passage of time, these people have had more experience of the galaxy and the races.
I mean, Voyager. They haven't even experience.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, they went to the other side of the bleeding galaxy, didn't they? As did the crew of Deep Space Nine. They went through the Gamma Quadrant wormhole, into another part of the galaxy. So, to say that, considering they also come from a time period where only like a very small portion of the galaxy had been explored.
And they're like, oh yeah.
Just because they spore drove to this planet with a church on it a couple of 1,000 light years away or whatever, and went into the mirror universe for half a season. Oh yeah, we know it all. We've been everywhere. We're the most experienced. It's really arrogant and conceited, that is, and that again is the middle finger at the fans, at the ones that are the real dyed in the wool Star Trek fans, because they're basically saying to them, all those crews that you knew, the crew of Voyager, the crew of the Enterprise, Kirk and Picard's era, Cisco exploring the Gamma Quadrant and all that kind of thing. Even Archer of the Enterprise, who didn't explore that much, but compared to later series, all these other crews, they're not a patch on the crew of the Discovery. We're the bestest ever. We've done it all, we've seen it all, and they've seen jack shit as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. So my rant is over on that one, but there's a lot of things in this episode that are really, it's what I call disco back on form again, in terms of being arrogant, conceited, virtue signaling, sticking the middle finger up at the true Star Trek fans, as I call them, like myself, like you, it's just a dumpster fire. It's an absolute, but what's interesting is that when we first started talking about doing these reviews, we thought, if nothing else, we'll get a really good laugh out of this.
Yeah.
At the absolute ineptitude of trying to do, because we missed the opportunity to review season 2 on YouTube because we hadn't started our channel. It had already finished airing by that point. We'd have had a whale of a time reviewing season 2 and season 1 as well, for that matter, because it's like they ripped off a lot of things, but there were times when they didn't, when they tried to do things that were their own thing, but they failed so badly at them in terms of how absolute fucking stupid they were, like the time crystals and all that, and and all that kind of, and the space ocarina in Picard and all that. When they tried to do something that they thought was, oh, this has never been done, they failed so badly at it. It was such a shit half-assed mess. And they've those were the things that I was looking forward to taking the piss out of this year. But now they're not doing that anymore. They're just ripping everything off. We're going to come to something in a minute.
Before we do that, though,
And there's something else I want to... Is yours to do with Babylon 5?
No.
No, right. I do believe this has already been mentioned about Babylon 5, but a week or two ago, something like that, I didn't put it in, I forgot when we were doing the review, but it suddenly occurred to me, I'd come across this before, The Great Burn, and I was trying to think where it was. And I had to think about it for a little bit, and I eventually remembered where it was. And it was an episode called The Deconstruction of Falling Stars from the finale of season 4 of Babylon 5. And it's basically the story of what happens after the time period, way into the future, after the time period of Babylon 5 when the Alliance is created. And we get this period 500 years in the future where Earth has started becoming quite belligerent and quite militant and that. And a set of circumstances come about that basically causes like the destruction of Earth. And the Alliance is still out there, but it's no longer to do with Earth. It's out there in the galaxy elsewhere, hidden. But occasionally they keep clandestinely visiting Earth and guiding it and all that kind of thing. And the primitives that are living on Earth now, they're calling it, they talk about the Great Burn, and, you know, this kind of thing, where the Rangers and the Alliance and that. And I was thinking, they've ripped off, they've ripped the entire fucking thing off for this season. I mean, we've already had Andromeda, which is a similar, but what they've done is they've took the premise of Andromeda, some things from that episode, things from the Expanse with the Belters and all that kind of, they're just grabbing things left, right and centre with no, you know, we don't care. We'll just plagiarise everything, blatantly plagiarise everything left, right and centre and hope that nobody notices. Yeah. But science fiction fans know their stuff, you know, and they know when things have been, they remember episodes that they're, you know, Deconstruction of Falling Stars is a great episode of Babylon 5, fantastic episode. So it took me a while to jog my memory because I hadn't seen it for a bit, but I thought I did remember this phrase, the Great Burn, and I think, well, there it is, you know.
Yeah.
So and you can talk us through this one because they've done it. They did it again. They did it again with this one.
Before that, I haven't told you this, right? But I have a secret contact in CBS, okay, and they've sent me the complete Blu-ray box set for Star Trek Discovery, right? And this is it. Right. I can assure you, this it is all of Star Trek Discovery.
That's Star Trek Discovery, yeah. Because yeah. I mean, you and I, we had a brief conversation before we started this video. This was post watching the episode, so we had no kind of idea of what we were. But we did say one thing, and I said, did you hear that piece of music? You know, it's bells now. Anyway, the music's not that, but take our viewers through it. This is what they do in this episode. There's this idea of this song, isn't there?
Yeah. So, well, it starts at the end of the last episode where
Adira! You see, they ripped off Babylon 5 there as well. Lady Adira!
Adira starts playing this song that she heard
on her banjo. Sorry, on her cello. On her banjo.
She'd heard
on her cello.
Yeah, she'd heard from her boyfriend.
Boyfriend / previous host type thing or whatever. Yeah.
And you hear a song, and that's whatever. And
you don't think anything of it at that time. I mean, Michael Burnham hears her playing it, doesn't she? And she says, "Oh, that's a lovely song," which is the setup for this one.
Yeah. And then when they're on this hippie ship,
on the sea vault ship.
Yeah. They hear the song again. Well, Michael Burnham, the goddess that she is, hears the song again.
Yeah.
She goes to ask some people about it as well.
Yeah,
and they've also heard the song.
Yeah, and she speaks to is it the lieutenant when they go back to the starbase?
Yeah.
That the future Starfleet lieutenant woman, whose name I can't remember either. And she says, "Oh, there's quite a few people who know that song." Doesn't she kind of just dismiss it and say, "Oh, it's just like when you get a tune stuck in your head or something like that."
Something like that. Yeah.
It's like you say, it's a rip-off of Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
The final 5. I mean, we talked about maybe if this piece of music is now going to be like some sort of embedded code to the secrets of the burn, or is there another aspect to what's going on with the Federation, and it'll be out there, the answers will be out there, and the music will lead the way to that, you know, like it's an encoded thing. And if they do that, that is a blatant rip-off of Battlestar Galactica, because throughout those latter seasons, well, certainly the finals, the fourth and final season, they, the final five hear it, which is what gives them the clues to where connecting to the original Cylon homeworld, which they call Earth, but it's not. And then it goes on. Starbuck's hearing it, she's hearing it, and she's kind of like she's having these hallucinations of her father when he was piano player in the bar, and she figures it out. And Hera, Hilo and Sharon's child, and she's like drawing the notes, isn't she, on the pieces of paper and that. And then Starbuck takes a piece of paper and realizes it's like, and then in the big massive battle at the end, when they have to jump to escape, they've got one last jump in the Battlestar. She uses the computer like the coordinates, doesn't she?
Yeah.
But it's almost like she's playing it like the piano, like her dad did. Da 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 da. And then it jumps and they find Earth. Yeah. And that's the end. That's the final place for them all to be safe and for the whole story to come to an end and that. And it kind of fulfills her prophecy as well, her purpose, and she just vanishes off. And that for those people who've not seen it, if you haven't, why have you not seen it? Because it's damn sight better than this crap.
You have literally no reason to not watch
There's
it.
No reason.
So do it.
it's the pinnacle of fantastic, recent year science fiction. The remake of Battlestar. This couldn't piss in the wind for this one, for Battlestar. This show would never have a hope of having a candle on Battlestar. So the fact that they're trying to rip off something so magnificent, in my opinion, as a series, is just they're just taking the piss, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
And it's blatant. It's blatant. I'd imagine there's going to be a lot of YouTubers who are going to pick up on this and say, "Oh yeah, this is a rip off of Battlestar."
Yeah.
Easy, because it's such a mammoth part of the story in the last year or so, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not the whole story, but it's a big thread running right through it to the end.
Well, it's what leads to the end of the show.
Yeah.
Like they'd have all just died in space if not for that.
It saves them all. It gives them a home. It gives them a future, and it also brings about the future of mankind. Ultimately, many thousands of years further down the line. But yeah. So if they do that, unless they're just baiting us, and it will actually mean nothing, because
they're just
I don't know,
idiots.
Yeah, you know what they're like, the writers on this show. Yeah. That they do things and then it just doesn't mean anything, and then they'll we forgot about that at the end. Let's just shoe on that one into the last 5 minutes. Picard, anybody?
Pilot woman as well in this with her implant that's probably control.
I mean, they're almost implying now that it was just concussion. It was just. I mean, maybe that was a red herring to make us think that it was control. I still think control is going to be a part of it.
Probably.
I absolutely think control is,
because they can't think of any villain that isn't an AI.
Yeah, because they're obsessed with AIs. And funnily enough, that was another note I've made here. What was all that with that bloody AI hologram with the white bow tie? What? Why has he got a bow tie?
I don't know.
You like Matt Smith as the Doctor? You know that hologram one, Eli or whatever he is. He got on his collar he got like a Starfleet uniform thing, but there was a white bow tie on his collar. What's all that about? That bow ties are cool.
Talking about holograms, we're forgetting something very funny.
Yes.
Georgiou.
Yeah.
She's being interviewed by two holograms. She's staring at them and she just starts aggressively blinking.
Yeah,
and it causes the holograms to crash.
And I'm thinking, well, and you said the same thing. If it's that easy to just disable AI intelligences, why didn't she just do that to Control and save us all that
just
shit?
Blink loads.
I mean, she fought him as well, didn't she? In the corridor, had the shit kicked out of her.
Maybe that was how she beat him.
You
just didn't see that.
All she needed to do was just stand there and go, no, with her eyes, I mean, there's something... They're trying to be clever here as well with Georgiou, aren't they? Because something's clearly happened to her.
Yeah.
Something's gone on, but we're not privy to what that is yet. But they're trying to be profound, aren't they?
They are far from it.
I think, I mean, unless there's anything else you want to say, we can go into sort of rating.
Yeah, I think we've basically covered.
Because what I was going to say was that there's very little to redeem this episode. It's to some degrees it's boring. To other degrees, it's just a shit mess. To another set of degree, it's just damn right insulting. And insulting on the intelligence, and also insulting on those people who know Star Trek and love it for what it used to be and not what it is now. But there is one little thing with this episode which I was okay with, which was Georgiou.
Yeah.
Apart from the blinking
apart from that.
Yeah, apart from the blinking thing was absolutely ridiculous. But there was some interesting interplay going on there about. Well, they actually described. Now, I was under the impression that the Terrans in the Mirror Universe were just humans who just happened to be evil, but they kind of implied here that there's something genetic about the humans that makes them like a separate species.
Evil or something.
I mean, again, that's convenient, and there was no need to do that. You just say, oh, they're just evil.
Yeah,
they're just evil, and that's it. You don't have to say, oh, evil is genetics or something. You know. I'm sure that's another attempt to do some identity politics or something like that. But I did like the interviewer, the one with the glasses. Oh, you know, it was. I can't remember the name of the actor or the name of the character, but it was an interesting bit of interplay between the two of them. That's the one thing about this episode that gives it a little tiny bit of credibility for me. So because of that, I'm going to give this episode a 1. So do you want to?
So 1.5.
Yeah. 1.5. Yeah. There was nothing else really going for it other than that.
Not really. I mean, we talked. Happens.
No, I mean, the acting and the chemistry of the actors was appalling, as you saw in our review for last week. But it wasn't quite so bad this week. I don't know what it was. I think it was just Star Trek Discovery on reset. This very much felt like a season 1, season 2 story again.
Yeah.
So maybe that's because they're back. Yeah, that's not good at all. Maybe it's because they're back with the Federation now, and they just felt like they needed to stretch their, you know. This is Star Trek, you know. This is the Star Trek now that you're going to have to live with.
Yeah.
But next week could be interesting because we've got a return from Book. It looks a bit more down and dirty next week with the Andorians and the Orions again. So I'll have to watch this space. But as I understand it, it's going to be, for our viewers, it's going to be me alone reviewing Star Trek Discovery.
I have some toys to play with next week. So.
Dad has some other priorities next week with the arrival of his lovely new games console and whatnot. So yeah, so it's going to be me flying solo next week for both Discovery and The Mandalorian. But hopefully Dan will be back with us the week after. So
yes.
We'll see if we can pry him away from his games by that point. So
yeah.
We'll give him a week. Anyway. So, but for now, we'll just say thank you very much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this video as well. And unless there's anything else you wanted to add to the pot before we go.
That's a goodbye.
Yeah. All right then. Yeah. You take care, all, and we will see you very, very soon. Bye for now.